Hi, welcome to episode 3 of my video series on boundaries. Today I'm going to talk about the relationship between codependency and boundaries. So many people have heard the term codependency, but very few people actually understand what that term means. In a nutshell, codependency is when someone turns the responsibility for their own well-being or happiness over to something or someone outside of themselves. So for example, if I can only be happy if the other person or the other people in my life are happy, then I have essentially turned my happiness over to them. Another example might be if I can only have fun or be content if I'm drinking alcohol, then I've turned my life and my happiness over to alcohol in terms of the responsibility for my happiness. So what does codependence have to do with boundaries? Really, it all comes down to the fact that codependency is a learned behavior, all right? It's not something that we're born with. It's not some kind of mental illness or anything like that. Codependency is a mindset and kind of an approach to life that's typically passed down within families from generation to generation. Codependency is especially prevalent in families where maybe there's addiction or where one or more of the members of the family are a narcissist, or where the parents are emotionally unavailable for children growing up. And in these kinds of situations, children end up believing that they are responsible for the relationships in their life, for the dysfunctional relationships. In these situations, children often learn that they have to try harder than the other people in the relationships in their lives to make the relationships work. They also often feel responsible for trying to fix whatever is dysfunctional in the relationships in their lives. These children often get really good at what I'd call walking on eggshells, and they usually grow into adults who are really good at keeping their own needs hidden and at putting the needs of others above themselves. They also typically believe that the outward appearance of a relationship is more important than anything else. The reason for all of this is that children who grow up in a codependent environment or where codependency is modeled and sometimes even rewarded is that these children never learn to honor their own self-worth and to see themselves as autonomous and independent individuals. This leads to a lot of dysfunction because the codependent person is always looking for someone else to fix or to take care of. That's simply the way they've learned to view the world. And if you're looking for someone to fix and take care of, what you're not going to be attracted to is someone who is secure and independent and who knows how to love themselves and love others in a healthy way. And here's the thing, it's really hard to have healthy boundaries in the context of an unhealthy relationship. Codependency in a relationship almost always leads to resentment and frustration, and inevitably that resentment and frustration either gets turned inward or it gets turned outward. It gets turned inward when an individual has learned to fear conflict or is literally afraid of hostility in the relationship. Or it will get turned outward as anger and hostility, which of course usually triggers hostility in return from the other person who's unhealthy, and then the relationship exists in a constant state of conflict and turmoil. Neither of these scenarios is healthy, where either the individual hides or loses themselves in order to keep the peace, or where there's constant fighting and struggle and there's no peace to be found in the relationship. A lack of boundaries is at the heart of all of this. So if a child fails to learn, for whatever reason, how to set effective boundaries in their life, or if the boundaries that they try to set are constantly violated and disrespected, this by default gives the other people in their lives the control over setting the boundaries that they have to live their lives by. Unfortunately, most people think of boundary setting as putting up thick walls to protect themselves, right? But the real purpose of boundary setting is actually to gain just enough control in a situation that we can feel safe to express ourselves and to be our true selves within the relationship. It's all about making sure that we can feel safe enough to actually get close to other people. Knowing that our boundaries are what's going to keep us safe, and that our commitment to upholding our boundaries is what is going to prevent us from losing ourselves in the relationship or from repeatedly being hurt or disappointed. The boundaries are also what's going to keep us from violating other people's boundaries and trespassing into their safe spaces as well. The goal in any healthy relationship really should be to have adequate boundaries to keep ourselves feeling safe, but also giving us the freedom to play and be creative and to be spontaneous. If you need a mental visual of what healthy relationships should look like and you're a horse lover, I want you to think about what it looks like and what it feels like when horses in a herd are playing and being spontaneous and being really creative with each other, while at the same time they all feel really safe and secure within the context of the herd. This is all because horses are taught at a very early age and kind of reconditioned every day to be very respectful of boundaries, but also to express themselves fully so that they all know exactly who each other is at all times. So if you are enrolled in my retreat on boundaries right now, what we're going to dive into this week is some of the challenges that especially people who are codependent face when we finally decide that we want to start changing some of those patterns in our life and start to be healthier in our relationships with others. We're also going to spend some time talking about what the solutions to those challenges are. And in fact, we're even going to practicing what those solutions are so that we can begin to develop those new skills. This is going to be a pivotal week in the retreat. It's going to be a challenge, but it's also going to give you a really useful roadmap to help you start developing the critical skills that can actually change your life. As always, I hope this video was helpful and that you now have a clearer understanding of the relationship between codependency and boundaries.